for any startup, product market fit is the most important thing. And if you just run the survey and you just look at your metrics without talking to your customers, you might not actually know why things are either working or not working, both of which are important to optimize it. If you're a scale up, you might have gone into markets, you might have gone after new personas, and working out what your value proposition and how your product market fit is explained by users, is understood by users, can help you optimize it and make sure that if you're a scale up, you're going into new markets properly or you're going into new customer bases properly. Hello and welcome to this CXL Feed. My name is Rosie Hoggmascall. I'm a product growth consultant. I'm also author of growthdives.com. Today we're going to go through user interviews to dive deeper into product market fit. So you might have run the product market fit survey by Sean Ellis, and now it's like, okay, so what? We've kind of worked out who we have product market fit with, but we need to know a little bit more detail. Surveys don't always tell you what you need to know. You need to dig in with 5 to 10 more users to work out more qualitative information about why they like you, what other things they have going on, where you fit in the broader scheme of competitors. So what we're going to go through is the customer interviews. You've run your product market fit survey and you want to speak to people who are both super disappointed if they could no longer use your product, very disappointed cohort. You also want to speak to people who are on the fence, the somewhat disappointed cohort. There's 2 things we want to find out. One is, why do people love us? And 2 is, what's holding people back from loving us? There's so much you can find in user interviews and it's important to de-scope. So making sure you've only got 2 things is super useful. Going into your research, have a research question. What are we trying to find out? So this is an example that I used with a client recently and doing product market fit user interviews. So the first thing is messaging. What is our value proposition? Why do we have product market fit? How are we different in a busy space? And what are we not? Arguably, knowing what we are is really hard. So knowing what we're not can help you chip away the pieces to being more clear and concise in value propositions. The second is around product market fit. So you've run the product market fit survey. You might have found why people love you, why people are on the fence, and what they want to improve. That might be a few words. When people have like a free text entry field in a survey, it's very rare that they give you enough detail so you can actually act on it. What you want to do is you want to get more details around those specific themes that you pulled out of the user research when you ran a survey. So what you want to do is you have your value, so what value people get from your product, from your survey, and the feedback, the top themes. And we want to be asking people questions around these specific areas. Exploring the market in more detail, what markets you're in, what use cases people are using for, and if you have any audience overlap with others. The last thing is around monetization. If you have a product that's paid, you want to work out why people are paying and why people are not paying. 2 super important things. So if you ran 5 interviews with people who were very disappointed and you run 5 interviews with people who are somewhat disappointed, that would be a really good place to start. And getting answers to the first 1 and 2 would be great, and 3 would be a bonus. So when you start your user interviews, there's a few key questions ethics-wise we need to ask. One is, can we record? You don't want to be recording without asking them. And without recording, it's really hard to analyze your results. The second question is whether they have a hard stop. Then you'll know how to pace things, whether to cut questions out. And then I think opening with a kind of an easy question like, how are you? How's your day going? Like, tell me what you're doing. Like something that's like more of a kind of small talk type question to help people loosen up. Once you've got those ethics questions and small talk out the way, the best thing to do is to think of things as a timeline. With any user research, when we're talking to people, we don't want to be asking people questions about things that are really far in the future or even 5 minutes in the future. So as soon as you start moving away from the present day, things like, would you do this? Could you do this? Would you use that? Would you like this feature? Those are by default bad questions. People are notorious for saying one thing and doing a completely different thing. What you want to be doing is asking people about real actions that they've taken. And that doesn't have to be about your product. It can be about other people's product because that helps you understand their behavior. So even if they don't pay for your product, for example, like tell me the last time you paid for a newsletter, or tell me the last time that you paid for a subscription. Do you pay for any subscriptions, even if they don't pay for yours? And so that's the first rule of these user interviews. Don't ask about the future, always ask about the past, even if the past is not about you. The second thing is use a timeline. So you go in, you say, do you have a hard stop? Okay, great. Am I okay to record this? It's only for internal purposes, not going to be shared externally. Okay, great. Okay, like, how's it going? What have you got? What's on your mind today? Like, what are you doing? Some sort of kind of nice question at the beginning. And then digging into kind of an easy question. So tell me about the first time that you signed up for the product. Do you remember where you were? Just talk me through that moment. Like, a sign up event is quite easy. Like, oh, I was on the train, I signed up, or a friend told me about it. That's quite an easy question. So starting there is a great place, and thinking of it as a timeline and wanting to move backwards along that timeline from there. Okay, so once you've asked the first easy question, something to the effect of, the second question is around desired outcome. So what is it that you were looking to do? Like, what were you hoping to get out of this product? Once you've got those two kind of key anchor questions, then you can start going back along the timeline. So you can say, okay, so you were hoping to get this out of it. When was the moment when you realized that that's something that you wanted to solve in your life, or that's something that you wanted to do? And you can see you're starting to go back and back, like digging and mining further back to make sure that you can think of it as a whole timeline, but you can't see the timeline. Say it's on a misty screen. What you want to do is you want to be uncovering this timeline for as far back as possible and as detailed as possible. So you say, okay, you downloaded it, someone recommended it to you, it was a couple of weeks back, you want it for this, playing this back, you're hoping to get this out of it. Tell me the first time that you realized that's something you wanted to do. Where were you? And what next? What did you realize next? What was going on for you at the moment? You want to be digging into these questions, but not asking multiple at a time. So one question, let them talk. Then awkward silence. That's another rule. Making sure that you wait for kind of 3 to 5 seconds after someone said something in case they want to add something on the end. So you're keeping digging further back. You know when they signed up. You know what they're hoping to achieve. Then you know what was the moment when they realized they wanted to solve that problem. The other thing you want to find out is the moment they wanted to solve that problem, what was the first point of call? So what did you do first? Once you get that, it's really easy to start other things rolling. So, okay, you tried this first, just playing that back. What's the second thing you tried? How did that go? What was on your mind? And not asking these questions one after another, but waiting, listening. So what you want to do is, like, imagine that board again, like slowly uncovering all the different parts of this customer journey. And when you're talking to someone, I've had this before, you have a complete mind blank and you don't know the next question. If you have this visual in front of you, it can really help you go backwards. Okay, what did you do before that? What was life like before you had that problem? How long were you having that problem for? Did it come out of the blue? What triggered you to actually start looking? Oh, I'm hearing that first thing that you tried wasn't very good. Like, what other things did you try after that? What did you search? If you're reading, sometimes, for example, if people say, oh, I searched it. Oh, what words were you searching? Do you remember what was the first thing that came up? What did you do next? And it's just being very interrogative along a timeline, always in the past. So with the product market fit survey, working out who are the competitors is one of the key parts of this. And what you want to be working out is, how are we different? So say they want to solve this problem and they tried 3 things before. You probably have quite similar functionality to the things that they tried before. What you need to understand is, where are you in that decision-making process? You want to get into their brain and work out, okay, they tried one thing and they stuck with it. Why? Or they binned it. Why? Like, what was it that was annoying? What was it that was motivating? What was it that made them search for something else? What was it that made them go back to the drawing board? And this is a really useful visual for that. Think about your product in the middle, and you can have different categories of other competitors that might solve the problem. And working out what they liked about that competitor. Oh, okay, so you read a book instead of going to therapy. Okay, how was the book? Did that help you? And people will often say, yeah, it's useful, but it's not very actionable. Like, I don't have any accountability. And if it's a therapy product, you're like, okay, well, you went to a therapist. How was that? Oh, I made a lot of progress, but it's really expensive. So you might have one thing here that's books and one thing here that's therapists. And therapists might have accountability. It might be real-time feedback. It might be lots of different things, but the downside might be cost. It might be logistically hard to get there. And those are the things you really want to capture. You want to get really deep into the competitors and the pros and cons of each. What you then want to do is work out, okay, how does that help us position ourselves? And so after you've done your user research and after you've built this whole journey, you need a real strong view of where you sit in the customer mindset. Then you work out, okay, how are we different? How are we better? How are we worse? Important to know that. And lastly, you need a really crisp way of communicating this. So this is an example of someone who's reading things to try and get better at their job. They might be a consultant and they're reading materials to try and make them better at their job. This is how granular you should get with your value proposition in order to communicate it in a way that's super clear for your team, your investors, and your customers. So with this example, we have context, use case, current way, limitation, problem, capability, feature, benefit, desired outcome. So it's one of Lenny's templates, Lenny Richitsky. So here, you recently started a consultancy for tech companies and CEOs. You're trying to understand technology on a deeper level to help advise clients. How you're currently doing things is reading Wired and TechCrunch, as well as newsletters. But the limitations of these is that they focus on the here and now. They don't provide the depth, and if they do, they don't provide a wide perspective. The problem with this and the blocker to your progress means you're only getting a partial view of tech at one point in time from one perspective. With our product, your capability is now that you can learn to think critically and holistically about deep technologies by learning through how a thought leader dissects and interrogates the latest tech from a range of angles, so that you can get a more holistic understanding and a long-term view, which means you'll feel more confident advising clients and recognized as a thought leader in your field. So this case study is about someone who's trying to get better at being a consultant, and you can see how the competitors of reading other publications, reading books is not quite cutting it for them. And you can only get this sort of detail from those user interviews and that whole timeline of where you fit in, why people make the decisions they do, and why you are ultimately better for them as a solution. So the 3 things to do with your product market fit user research interviews are: find your competitors, work out the decision-making process for each. Find your value proposition, so what context, use case, limitations of the current way, how you solve that better. And that's the most important point. Things are competitive. There's so many other options for people in the world, and it's getting increasingly hard to stand out. So you need to make sure that you understand why you stand out at the moment and filter that through all of your messaging. So run your user interviews. Let us know how it goes. I would love to know if you have any challenges, what's difficult, what's tricky about speaking to people, and how you can get better. So let me know.